Hi, everyone, and welcome to Perfect Prey. I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to remind you that if you can please subscribe or like or leave reviews, it will just help spread the word. As you know, I call this podcast Perfect Prey because I believe that, of course, perpetrators choose, predators choose their victims, and that there's a lot of people who are aligned very well with being extremely giving, perhaps fixers in relationships. This is not about codependency, although it can be, or low self worth, although it can be. This is often just simply about a pretty halfway decent person meeting up with a predator. And a predator knows what these people look like and wishes they were more like these individuals. So add in there again that our children are ideal prey for perpetrators. So I wanted to talk a little bit today. I talked a little bit about this on my YouTube channel, but I really wanted to expand again on this authoritarian style of parenting that abusers have. Authoritarian means dominating, right? And we know that these abusers have this omnipresence in their family lives. They actually show up in a way that when they're home, everyone knows how to behave. When the car pulls up, everybody has a reaction to that car pulling up. Is that person going to be in a good mood or a bad mood? Now, again, your abuser, your children's abuser, may not have ever shown up in a bad mood. They may have been just absolutely content and happy at home, behaving in a way that really can be even that much more confusing. And I am not in any way suggesting having someone show up angrily all the time is easy, because it is not. But it does allow us to have more discernment. That fear, rather than being covert, is very overt. There is this recognition that we fear. It's like the wolf pulling up to the door. You know it's the wolf. But what if the wolf is in sheep's clothing, right? And so, as a victim, that's what happened to you. That's why you fell prey to this abuser, because they showed up in sheep's clothing. They showed up like a decent human being. And you readily just thought, oh my gosh, this person is someone that I want to be around. This person is someone who really seems to have a lot of the similar character traits that I have. I really love this person and they love me, right? That love bombing that occurred, that intermittent reinforcement. The same thing happens with our children, right? And so when these abusers are not overtly authoritarian, they're always authoritarian, but they can sometimes hide it very well. When they are not overtly authoritarian, the children do not feel as they're not sure how they feel, frankly. And the trauma bond becomes even more fortified because of this intermittent reinforcement, these moments of good and these moments of bad that happen in any abusive relationship. But again, if I'm an abuser and I show up more like a sheep, then it's going to be a lot harder for me to recognize who this person is. So I'm going to call this segment of the podcast the lore for tweens and teens, because I see this happening over and over again. And it certainly happened in my own family system, where my children over and over again were being lured in by an abusive partner and parent who was being the hero parent, was being the permissive parent. But again, the children knew that if they did not align, if they did not follow through with the abusive parent, if they did not do what the abusive parent wanted, that there might have been rejection or retaliation. See, they saw how I was treated. They saw that. And so in family systems, when children see how the adult victim is treated, they begin to predict what that is going to mean for them if they don't actually behave or follow through in the way that, again, the abuser wants them to. So I call it a lure, because I'm going to lure you in and let you use your phone whenever you want, or I'm going to lure you in and tell you, oh, you don't have to clean dishes, come and watch a TV show with me. And I'm going to start doing this around tweens and teens. I might have started it off really overtly authoritarian. Absolutely. But now I've recognized that that authoritarian style may not work very well with a tween or a teenager. But what will work and what's simpler is just to give them what they want, to be indulgent, to not have proper structure in place and boundaries in place, and to ensure that I create a space where that protective parent feels very controlling because they're requiring boundaries, right? And where I am the fun parent. I am the one so again, this can be from the very beginning, or it can be a switch up that occurs. So a lot of people are like so surprised. A lot of my protective mothers are so surprised. And, certainly this can happen again with abusive women, we know, but in general, abuse is based on patriarchal norms. Men have more power in society. It makes sense that this is going to happen more to women, and we know that it does. We know that it does. So that being said, I am a protective parent, and my child is petrified of the abuser because that abuser's omnipresent, always there, as Dr. Emma Katz talks about in her book, right? This fear that the children have. Absolutely. But now all of a sudden, my kids are not as afraid, overtly afraid. The fear is always there. They're not as overtly afraid of the abusive parent. What they are is aligning a little more, going along with the flow, maybe back talking now the protective parent when previously they might not have done that. And so what's happening is that abuser is luring the child in. And again, they're going to lure them in with things that they want. They're going to lure them in with more free time, the TV shows that maybe as co-parents you would have never allowed. They're going to do these types of things to diminish you, the protective parent. And when we fight back, when protective parents fight back and say, what are you doing? Why aren't you following the rules? All we're doing, sadly, is reinforcing for the child that we are opposed to that other parent. And you see, that other parent's lure is very shiny, very shiny. And that's not going to work. It's not typically going to work for children. So we ask, how could this kid who was so well behaved, followed all the rules, knew that phones were dangerous, or knew that being online too long was not healthy for us, how could they automatically switch and flip? Well, because they're children. Their brains are developing. They are very easily able to succumb to peer pressure. And this abuser begins to pressure them. And again, a very covert way. Doesn't have to be overt. So the savvy abusers, frankly, the really savvy ones figure this out. And this is exactly how they're going to take our children and make our children turn against a protective parent. I have a mom who recently told me that her child, who had totally, clearly had a fear, an overt fear of the abusive parent. The abusive parent was sometimes physically aggressive, abusive. And now this child is realizing, with an older sibling aligning with that abusive parent, now this child is realizing it's going to be easier to align with the abusive parent. And now is denying any of that behavior, denying any of that fear, really disassociating from it all because that feels safest. That is the world. If you live in a world where there's a coercive controller, that is the world that you're living in. And you have to strategize now. You have to parent differently. You have to maybe allow things you wouldn't have allowed. That doesn't mean you give your children carte blanche. It doesn't mean that you change everything, but you have to figure out where that line is. And it's a very tricky line. I'm the first to admit that. It's a very tricky line. I have a mom who has a young daughter, 15, who gets to come home whatever time she wants. And the mother has no ability to create stricter rules around that. The coercive controller has totally sabotaged that ability. What does she do? How does she handle that? She's just waiting when her child comes home. She's just there making sure her child is safe. She tells her child, I'll come and get you if at any time you need a ride, without any questions asked. She didn't expect to be picking up a child who maybe has had alcohol or other substances from a party at 2 a.m. at 15 years old. She did not expect to be doing that, but the coercive controller planned it and did this purposefully to subvert her power in the family system, her personal power. So how do we gain back that personal power? We gain it back by doing what is necessary to ensure our children see us as there for them, as part of their team, as understanding what they're experiencing without shaming them. That's how we do it. So I hope that's been helpful, everyone. I could talk about this topic for hours. I sometimes wonder if I'm repeating too much, but I really do think that we have to drill it into our brains. I was one of those moms. I had to have it drilled into my brain. I will end with this. I will say that I had a mom that I've known for quite some time who had no idea that I had experienced this since a very young age and that I was doing this advocacy work also from a very young age. It can be so insidious that even the most astute of us miss the signs, and there's no shame in that, which is why I speak out. So, I hope you all have a good day. I ask again that you like, subscribe, share, spread the word about Perfect Prey. And if you're not aware, my colleague and I, Amy Polacco, just published a book called Framed Woman in the Family Court Underworld. It is called that because we do know that these issues are structurally endemic based on patriarchal norms. And the reality is that there is an inequality in systems if you are a woman. And so it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to men, but it's happening at such a great rate to mothers and children that we wanted to highlight those experiences in hopes that we can create a movement, a groundswell, and creating protections for everyone who is harmed by coercive controllers. So again, thank you so much. I'm glad to have you as my listeners, and I really hope that you will share this episode with other people. Have a wonderful day, everyone.